go out there and beat the balls off of these trans people. Don't think he's like advocating for violence, okay? It's kind of a joke. Here's a solution. Just punch them in the balls, because they've got balls, some of them have removed them, but that's illegal in the UK. The punch in the bollocks bit was about the height difference between men and women. The bollocks being closer to punch level for a woman, defending her rights, and certainly not a call to violence, maniacs. Now, Watson is involved in the other case, and trans activists are gonna be there, so when the trans activists show up, make sure you bring nose plugs for their disgusting smell. Strange situation happening in Germany. They call this party far right, whatever that means, from the BBC, because we know in England what far right is. I think if you wear an English flag or like hang an English flag or even a Great Britain flag, you're illegal. So what's happening in Germany is they have this other party called the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, which has gotten a bunch of additional seats over the last couple elections. And they're very nervous about this party taking over because, of course, this party doesn't want their country to be flooded and invaded with illegal aliens. And so they've got a bunch of candidates running, and now it's like 6, some people saying 7 have all dropped dead like in 13 days. What? Some of them are alternatives and more, but it's bizarre. As many as 6, and I saw yesterday a rumor of a 7th, but I've been trying to assemble like a list of these people, get photos and bios and all the things. But as many as 6 candidates in recent weeks have now died. Police have made clear there's no evidence of foul play, but it means that new ballots would have to be printed and some postal voters would have to recast their ballots. And people are doing the math on this. I mean, the numbers, like statistically, it's insane. And then a 7th, they're like, it's like 1 out of a billion that this happens. North Rhine-Westphalia has a population of 18 million, reported 20,000 candidates will run for office in its local election. Now, that's a lot, right? So I'd be like, well, it's a big population of candidates. So you got 20,000 people. Yeah, maybe just have like a weird cluster of deaths. But the number of deaths has raised questions on social media. The Interior Ministry has pointed out that candidates from other parties, they're also dying. So they're dying too. Why is everybody dying? AfD became Germany's second biggest party in federal elections, spreading from its eastern heartland into areas of the West too. The domestic spy agency classified it as a right-wing extremist organization, before placing a pause on that description because they're suing. In 3 eastern states, the AfD associations are still listed as extremists because they don't like illegal aliens. Initial reports centered on news that 4 of its candidates had died, and then the deaths of 2 reserve candidates also emerged. And people are saying, are they getting taken out? AfD co-leader called Alice Weidel made no effort to quash the speculation. She reposted a claim by a retired economist called Stefan Homburg that the number of candidate deaths was statistically almost impossible, right? So an economist said this, the real kind. However, asked about the rumors, AfD's number 2 said, what I have in front of me, but that's just partial information. It doesn't back up these suspicions at the moment, right? So what's going on? He told Politico's Berlin Playbook podcast that his party wanted the cases to be investigated without immediately getting into the conspiracy theory territory. He said that they had to tread carefully with families who have lost a loved one. Police told Germany's news agency that the 4 deaths were either from natural causes or the cause was not being divulged for privacy reasons. Like, are these suicides? Or are these, like Epstein in a cell somewhere? AfD strategists are hoping for gains as the election comes up. 16.8% in the state in federal elections. And this is what it looks like, man. That blue is the AfD, and it's just taking over Germany against the CDU party. So they're bigger than the Greens. They're bigger than the left. They're bigger, it looks like, than the SPD. So you can see why they're a threat to the power structure. And that's happening over there. The AP's also reporting that in strange other lands, they're just arresting people over there too. So if they're not dropping dead, they're just arresting you if you make bad transgender posts. Now, this is not in Germany. This is over in the UK, right next door. And they say the TV writer, this dude, was arrested over his posts on X. And these were insane posts, okay? So insane that he got arrested for these, let me say that. He posted this over on his Substack. He says, I just got arrested again. You're not going to believe it. He left the United States. He was in Arizona, shout out. He handed over his passport to the gate, and the official told me I didn't have a seat and I had to be reticketed. I thought, well, that's weird. How come I had to get reticketed? But in hindsight, he got flagged. Somewhere, someone probably wearing an unconvincing makeup had made a phone call. Now, the moment this dude, I stepped off the plane at Heathrow, 5 armed police officers were waiting for me. Not 1, not 2, 5, just to make sure that they could, really get this dude, take him out. Well, we need 5 of us because he's an anti-transer. And you know how they're freakishly strong. They escorted me to a private area and told me I was under arrest for 3 tweets. In a country where pedophiles escape sentencing, where knife crime is out of control, people where women are assaulted, he's talking about the UK, and harassed every time they gather to speak, the state had mobilized 5 armed officers to arrest me, a comedy writer, for this tweet. And no, I promise you, I'm not making this up. He posted this, April 20th, arrested for this. If a trans-identified male is in a female-only space, he is committing a violent, abusive act, right? Don't we have like sacred special places for everybody? Make a scene, call the cops, and if all else fails, punch him in the balls, okay? He's a comedy writer, so it's a joke. So I don't think he's actually saying, go out there and beat the balls off of these trans people. Don't think he's like advocating for violence, okay? It's kind of a joke. Here's a solution. Just punch him in the balls, because they've got balls, some of them have removed them, but that's illegal in the UK. 5 cops had to come arrest him for that. Here's another one. He says this is true too. This is a photo that you can smell, and it does look quite stinky. There's a bunch of people in there who are in very close proximity, and you know, who knows what their hygienic background is. Many of them don't pay too much mind to that. So you can see it probably very stinky. You can smell it. And then he followed up. He said, I hate them. Misogynists and homophobes. F them. That's it. Arrested. When I first saw the cops, I actually laughed. I couldn't help myself. I said, don't tell me. You've been sent by trans activists, right? The officers gave no reaction, and this was the theme throughout most of the day. Among the rank and file, there was sort of a polite bafflement. Entirely professional and even kind. Yeah, just like good little, bootlicker order followers. Sure, yeah, arrested. But most had absolutely no idea what any of this was even about, right? They didn't tell them, like, you guys got to go arrest this dude for his illegal tweets. Kind, because the officer saw how upset I was. When they began reading me my rights, the red mist descended, and I became close to becoming one of those body cam videos where you can't believe the perp isn't just doing what he's told. And they treated me gently after that. He's like, all right. They even arranged for a van to meet me on the tarmac, so I didn't have to be perped walk through the airport like a terrorist, which is a small mercy. I don't know. That kind of would have been fun. Yeah, I'm getting arrested for my post on X. Heathrow police station. At the police station, my belt devices were confiscated. I was shown a small green tiled cell with a bunk, a silver toilet in the corner, and a message from Crime Stoppers. So you can reflect on your life choices for saying people are stinky. By some miracle, probably that I hadn't slept on the flight, he took a little nap. Nice. After the premier economy seat, in which I just spent 10 hours, it was actually a relief to stretch out. That passed the time, though I kept waking up wondering if all of this was actually happening. Later during the interview, the tone shifted. The officer conducting it asked about each of the terrible tweets in turn, with the sort of earnest intensity usually reserved for discussing something serious like, a crime. He's like, well, you posted this, right? And it came from your device at this time. And so you said these words. And what do those words mean? You're like, gee, what? Freak show? Relax. I explained that the punch tweet was a serious point made with a joke. Men who enter women's spaces are abusers, and he's allowed to have that opinion. And they need to be challenged every time. Yeah, and abusers and, perverts and, exploiters. It's a strange, weird freak show thing. The punch in the bollocks bit was about the height difference between men and women. The bollocks being closer to punch level for a woman, defending her rights, and certainly not a call to violence, maniacs. Not one of my best, as one of the female officers says. We're not that small, says some gigantic Shrek German officer. Huge. He mentioned trans people. I asked him what he meant by the phrase. What do you mean? He says people who feel their gender is different than what was assigned at birth. I said, signed at birth? What? Our sex isn't assigned? He called it semantics. Well, I told him he was using activist language. The damage Stonewall has done to the UK police force will take years to mend. They sound like just brainwashed morons. Most of the leadership there. Eventually, a nurse came to check on me and found my blood pressure over 200 near a stroke territory. The stress of being arrested for jokes was going to kill this dude. So I was escorted where he spent 8 hours at the hospital. The doctors suggested the high blood pressure was stress related. I feel it may have been a contributing factor now. He has spent 8 years being targeted by trans activists. Apparently they're just nuts over there in England. And they would do that here too, by the way. Man, I'd be in shackles so quickly for making fun of their chopadichotomies. The police themselves, for the most part, were consistently decent throughout this farce. Some were even Father Ted fans, which I think is a show. Thank God the Catholic Church never had with the police the special relationship granted to the trans activists. The male officers were mostly polite, but clearly nonplussed by the politics. They don't care. They're just doing their jobs. The female officers seemed more tuned to what was actually happening. One mentioned the Sandy Peggy case in a certain way, and I realized I was among friends even if they couldn't admit it. So I looked at the single bail condition. I cannot go on Twitter. Illegal to post your trans hate. That's it. No threats, no speeches about the seriousness of my crimes, just a legal gag order designed to shut me up while I'm in the UK so he doesn't hurt the fifis of those trans dudes. The civility of individual officers doesn't alter the fundamental reality of what happened. I was arrested. I looked like a terrorist. I was locked in a cell. The stress nearly killed me. It's insane. It's a deprivation of his liberty. It's a deprivation of his rights. It is an infringement upon his natural rights. rights. And it is shocking that it's seemingly happening without much consequence, although there is a burgeoning cauldron of resentment over this stuff, rightfully so, that is percolating over there right now. To me, this proves one thing beyond a doubt. The UK has become a country that is hostile to freedom of speech, hostile to women, and far too accommodating to the demands of violent, entitled, abusive men who think they're women. At one point, I said, I bet I know who made this complaint. It was probably Lindsay Watson, a demented ex-copper troon who was fired for his online conduct. And then lo and behold, one of my lawyers sent this reply to the bollocks tweet. He said that weirdo ex-copper claims he was reported this to the police and is trying to get the other troons to do so. Just FYI. Now, Watson is involved in the other case, and trans activists are going to be there. So when the trans activists show up, make sure you bring nose plugs for their disgusting smell. Shout out to this dude for posting about it. But things are strange over there in Europe, and you've got German politicians dropping dead. You've got English comedians being arrested for making fun of trans freak shows. And it's nice to see him posting about it. So hopefully this continues to create boiling resentment from the Englishmen and the other people who care about their nation states, and they rise up to defend this dude. I'm sure that they will. We'll keep our eye on this one.